Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Super excited today, as always. But today's a little special. Back in August, I want to say it was the 14th, 2009, we're starting our Success Summit, and our guest speaker comes in backstage. We get a chance to connect, and it was just synergy, energy on steroids. And when I met this guy, I just knew, first of all, A, someone I like, B, someone I can learn from, and then ultimately C, like, this is someone that I saw that was going to change the world. And I made that, like, he's going to hear that and say, oh, meaning the people that get it, and they grow like crazy because of it, myself included. So Gary, this is our 9th interview.
Is that true?
It is. I was actually, my team went down and looked at the list of all the, shows we've done. And the fun part is that show, back in August 14th, 2009, somebody was holding a flip video camera.
It's unbelievable.
It dates our shows.
It was also a very rare moment. It was Mark Sanchez's first preseason game as a Jet. Remember that?
That's right. Of course. Okay, do you remember what my team did? Remember they set up it looked like
upstairs? Pong. Yes, I remember. It was unbelievable. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you so much. I hope you and your family are well. Obviously, everybody who's listening, I hope everybody's well. It's obviously 2020 is a very intriguing year and a lot going on, and I'm really happy to be here, and let's rock and roll.
Absolutely, my friend. So we're doing this, my friends, first because we want everybody to get a tremendous amount of value, and I'm excited to announce 11 years later, Gary is keynoting the 2020 Success Summit. So Gary, we're pumped to have you there.
Thank you.
But anytime we get together, I've always got a ton of questions. So I want to just dig in, and I want to start with, you mentioned 2020 has been an interesting year. I think that's an understatement, right? There's been so much that's happened. I want to know first and foremost at Vayner Sports and Empathy Wines and everything else you're involved in. What were some of the adjustments you and your company made to make sure that you kept moving forward powerfully?
At the highest level, VaynerX, which is Vayner Media, the Sasha Group, Vayner Speakers, the Gallery Media Group that holds 1:37 p.m. and purewow.com, that, Tracer, that, the Singapore and London office of Vayner Media, that was by far the thing that I have to spend the most time on. That's 80% of the world. Vayner Sports, AJ kind of runs outside of the VaynerX ecosystem. It's kind of the only Vayner company out there. Then there's my GaryVee brand, which, public speaking is, now starting to go into a virtual world, but has been pretty wiped for the year. And the first thing we needed to do was calibrate cash, right? Our clients going to pay, our clients are going to go out of business. So the first kind of, week to 2 weeks at home in early March were really about deep 12-hour days of how much are we spending on bananas in LA? Like, what are the Uber bills of top executives? A level of granularity that is, not where I'm spending the majority of my time. And so that was actually exciting. I love to operate, so I kind of enjoyed that. I think the first 3 years of Vayner Media, I was in that place with AJ. For the majority of my career with my dad, I was in that place because he is very cross T's and I's and every penny, where's it going? So that was number one. That led to some vulnerabilities. A lot of clients were deferring payment. We had bank covenants and real life business stuff. So the next step was really going through an HR exercise of, if we have to make some cuts, who would they be? And that was obviously extremely emotional and difficult. And unfortunately, we had to do some cutting. So that was the first 6 weeks, making sure everybody felt safe, not scared, dealing with difficult decisions, and navigating that, and and calibrating a new normal, and anticipating. One of the things we did well that is, I think, going to play out here is we projected for the rest of the year. My big fear was, at the time, if you remember, especially in the beginning, it was like, oh, this is gonna be a 2-week thing, maybe 4.
Right. Yeah.
Which seemed insane. It was like, oh my God, that's so much. And now, as of the recording of this, we could be in some sort of not normal or what we used to know for minimally the rest of the year, maybe into the Q1 of next year. So we made a lot of decisions that were difficult. That was tough. on a personal front, knowing that most of my speaking, I knew some of it would gradually come back into virtual, but I basically invest all the way back into Vayner's world because I subsidize it by using my speaking fees to kind of live my life. So that was difficult and something I had to really figure out how I was going to handle that. Now it's public knowledge. I was in the process of negotiating a sale of Empathy Wines to Constellation. I had no clue what COVID was going to mean to Constellation. Obviously, I knew the Empathy model was built for COVID and post-COVID, but you never make assumptions for the other gal or guy. And so I didn't know if that deal was going to die or go forward. Vayner Sports, I mean, who knows what's happening with sports? So, if our players don't get paid, we don't get commissions. So it's been a very wartime general game, and the hits keep on coming, right? Black Lives Matter becomes an incredibly important thing for us personally and culturally, and then that bleeds into business with boycotts of Facebook. We spend a lot of money on those platforms. So it's we've got a very heated election coming up in November, so you can't imagine the temperature of the country subsiding in any shape or form until the end of the year. So right. It's, this is definitely, in the real estate world, because my sister is in Jersey real estate predominantly, and I live in Manhattan. I'm sure there's a lot of people like my sister that are busier than ever because people are moving out of big cities and going into suburbs. Then there's people who are listening right now who probably sell real estate in Manhattan, and they're probably, COVID definitely created a game of haves and have-nots.
Right.
Winners and losers. It's such a unique situation. It's not like a global economic meltdown where everyone's affected. My dad's business, we launched Wine Text, a year ago, and that service completely exploded during COVID. Sign up for winetext.com if you haven't. Big shout out to my dad, but that business was exploding. My personal brand and my businesses were getting challenged. My sister's early real estate career was starting to grow because of Jersey action coming over from Brooklyn and Manhattan. So I'm sure right now a lot of people listening who are busier than ever, and then there's people who are in pockets in major cities that I have a feeling. I mean, I do think Manhattan's a unique market, but it's a very interesting time. So what did we have to do? We had to buckle down and think.
Yeah. So I want to talk about innovation today. I want to talk about pivoting. I want to talk about adjusting, but I'll give you some insight. Ready? So I coach 17 different CEOs of real estate companies. One has 90,000 agents, for context. One has 27,000 agents throughout all of Europe, right? So, these are major players in the space. We did a sort of late April, early May survey from, executives to managers. And here's what we discovered. About 45% of every real estate agent took a 12-week unpaid vacation. They essentially furloughed themselves. And yes, some of them were in non-essential markets. There was only a few left at the end. New York, obviously very fickle. Hoboken, as an example, where one of my top clients works. But places like Philadelphia, where they were completely shut down and couldn't do anything, or parts of Detroit where they were shut down. And yet, with all of that going on, you're exactly right. It really is those that did the work and those that were in a state of fear. And I don't mean to dummy it down to just that simple, but
that's always the case. But
yeah.
I assume there's micro. So that's yes. Period.
Of course.
I mean, that's just always the case. There is no success in being crippled by fear and curling up. Right now, do not confuse that with being thoughtful and conservative. Right. Mm-hmm. I thought it was appropriate for people to hoard cash and not, there was a lot of money to be made in in the stock market in that 2-week period.
Yep.
But I didn't deploy capital into it, even though I thought there was some opportunity, because it was just too early. I don't like making decisions when you don't have all the information.
Bingo. Well, do you think now, because look, so we're 108, 109 days-ish into, as we're recording this, at least certainly from California, in a stay-at-home, work-from-home environment. Do you think there's enough time that's now passed that we can, have a deeper, more insightful projection into the future?
I don't, but I'm also not a macro global economic kind of savant. And so what I mean by that is we've printed a lot of money. The people that need it most have stunningly spent it. Mm-hmm. as of this second, the situation seems really in flux. Americans and humans in general don't have the greatest patience. And right now people are super out and about. And I think we've seen, staggering growth in certain markets, and Florida and Texas and Arizona have been well documented, but I think these are in cycles. All of a sudden New York and New Jersey looks good. And then I have a feeling come September, they won't look good because now we're good and we're going to go outside. I think we're in a real pickle here. I don't think, first of all, we've created a society where everything is politicized. The fact that wearing a mask or not wearing a mask is a political issue is really unfortunate. Regardless of what the right answer is, it means that 50% are not going to agree. And so I think that we're in a really tricky spot here. I'm not saying, well, this is where we're at. I think there's a lot of people out of jobs. I think there's going to be more people out of jobs again as a second wave kicks in. I think the fall and winter is confusing. No, I'm personally not in a place of like, this is figured out just yet.
Yeah.
I do think that the ability to work from home for a lot of businesses is figured out. I at VaynerMedia feel like comfortable if people work from home now in comparison at scale compared to what I went into this year thinking. So I think there's some things that are obvious, but I don't think that the macro, like, the economy is great or not great, has been figured out. And the longer this lasts, and again, I think knowing this is a real estate podcast, I think Manhattan's got some real challenges. People are moving out. And I think if this really lasts until next March, you could see people getting really impatient. And I think, and from work from home, a lot of reasons people like to live in Manhattan is their office is here and they don't like to commute. Well, imagine a world where those individuals only have to come into work once or twice a week instead of 5 days a week. All of a sudden, the suburbs of Manhattan become very attractive very fast.
You're seeing the same thing though in Seattle. You're seeing the same thing in a lot of vertical living environments. Like that's become sort of the new norm. The data isn't out enough beyond the stories, right? There's a lot of stories of everybody's going to the Hamptons, everybody's going to Connecticut, everybody's going to New Jersey, everybody's going to Florida, but the data isn't out. There's a lot of online data that says the searches are massive from sort of these big industrialized cities out to the outskirts. So we're seeing that leading indicator, but we don't have enough data yet to say with absolutism, people are leaving, right?
That's right. And I think the people that tend to make money in business are the ones who see enough data to make a conviction, right? Like the data wasn't there on social media when I bet the farm. The data wasn't there yet on sports cards, a funny thing that I've been investing in the last 2.5 years, 2 years ago, but it then showed. The data wasn't there that podcast ads were a good idea. So I'm comfortable, I'm not in the real estate business, but in the places where I pay very close attention to your point, if you wait too long for the data that everybody understands, the arbitrage is gone. And so it's going to be very interesting. I'm very curious on how it's all going to play out. But I know anecdotally in story form that a lot of my real estate agent friends that are selling in Manhattan are kind of checked out and taking the summer off because it's real slow. Yep. And then the Westchester, Jersey, Connecticut, friends, and obviously my sister in Jersey, seem to be awfully busy.
Busier than they've been in a long time, especially places like Connecticut. That state has historically, at least for the last decade and a half, not done well from a residential real estate standpoint. And today, the $5 million listing that had been on the market for 3 years is now getting multiple offers. So there's some real data around there. It's really interesting. I actually wrote down for you, ready? 8 different just words and phrases. Sure. Things that we've talked about, things that I hear you talking about. The first one, you ready? I wrote down the word patience.
Yes.
And what I wrote down was your dad, my dad, us, we're like bricklayers, right? Sort of metaphorically, whether it's building the story of our life or we're building the castle, if you will, metaphorically, most people struggle with patience. And at a time like this, when I think it's really important, what are your thoughts around patience, especially for young or rock star real estate professionals?
Patience is a true business strength, true life strength that is uncomfortably not cool, which is why I think I got on it about 3 to 5 years ago, very loud. I think it actually is a byproduct of people's deep need to seem successful to others.
Yeah, 100%.
And a lot of the way I think about homes and other assets, or even calling yourself an entrepreneur, come from this. I think people overextend themselves across the board on everything from clothes to homes, with a 80 to 90% being grounded in other people's opinions.
Right.
And I think that when you can eliminate that judgment, whether it's your parents or your neighbors or the Joneses or social media, all of a sudden patience becomes easier. But when you're living under your means instead of over your means, and you do worry about like people thinking you drive a shitty car, then all of a sudden, patience becomes harder. So I think patience actually has a very close correlation to confidence. And I think about that a lot. And I'm a big fan of patience. I really am. I think it really, really matters.
If you were sitting with someone today who just like, they get it, but they don't apply it, what would you say or do with it? I think so many people get it.
I ask them why.
Yeah.
That's the thing I poke with friends and family. I'm like, why? And again, when you have like an hour and a half over dinner and some glasses of wine, or 3 hours in the backyard, or you work with them and you get the answer over a week, a lot of it comes down to judgment.
Yeah.
Eventually you'll get something like, well, my brother has a home in Connecticut, or
bingo,
because my dad's been looking, or
always
all my friends in college are married. You're going to get somewhere eventually to a place where they're going to say something about someone else, and that's the trigger, that's the insight, that's the
hook.
That's the hook. That's when I jump in and I'm like, please, let's debate this, because living your life predicated on that judgment is going to often lead to not a happy place. Like, what do you want? Like, I was super content in my crappy apartment in my 20s because it was super close to the store. And I liked waking up at 8:30 and being in the store by 9, that kind of stuff.
The practicality, which most
because I just couldn't hear the noise from the outside, whether that was my parents, my siblings, my friends, the broader world. And that really helped me. It helped me be happy. And that's ultimately what I want for people. I want them to be happy. And unfortunately, a lot of people associate money with happiness, and it is so obviously not true. And that's why some of these things like patience have become very important building blocks for me to communicate around. Especially as I felt that more people were following me. I started to convert from being flattered to feeling obligated. And so I started stretching myself over the last half decade to really challenge myself and figure out, why has this worked for me? What's working for me? And how do I communicate these things? And it ended up being a lot of soft skills and traits that haven't historically been associated with alpha business leaders. And that's, I think, what's been a little bit unique about it, and has been enjoyable to go through that process.
Yeah. People don't get that you can have an enormous capacity to care and be a great business leader. Right.
That's right. And I think people think business is too much dog eats dog, like step on people. And I just don't see it that way. I see the world far more abundant than those individuals.
Yeah, I agree. Before we're done, by the way, for the people that are listening, one of the questions I'm going to ask them at the very end is, social's pretty noisy. What does a new agent do? What does a crafty veteran do? And what's a team leader do? But I'm going to save that.
Okay.
The second thing I wrote down is content creation.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's a lot of people out there that, I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle with, A, how much do I post? And B, is anybody going to care? Or the better one is, I don't even know what to post.
Yeah.
What do you say to that person? Give us some, what's some practical, tactical things of not just getting over it, but just, hey, how much, in your opinion, should somebody be posting today on all different platforms?
As much as humanly possible. I
Speak to
don't,
that.
my speaking to that is very simple. It is absolutely the way that people discover people. You're a person that sells real estate, or a team leader, or you're trying to attract people to your brokerage, or you're trying to build credibility in a town because you're expanding into that town because you've kind of, saturated your current market and you want to go a little further out of your zone. As far as I'm a very big fan of documenting versus creating. I think when people think they have to make a video, it's hard. But if they just, give some thought to I would almost, if you just made a video every day and looked at your calendar and just spoke to your day, it might help somebody. I think, who are you as a human? I think too many real estate agents think about putting out content that looks professional instead of just being the guy or gal that they are. A real estate agent right now in Kansas City posting that they're excited that the Royals are coming back may actually, you know this about me. I already brought up with the Jets. The Jets matter to me a lot more than if you had 14 or 4 years of experience selling homes. And people make everybody knows this. People make decisions based on people. Almost everybody listening right now had no idea what they were doing when they sold their first 5 homes.
Right.
You learned it along the way. Right. And so those first 5 people were either family relationships, acquaintances, serendipity,
you got lucky.
Or likability, right? You're just a likable person. And that likability might be you're attractive, that's real life, or you're funny, or you did something well before, or you were the high school quarterback or your high school friend. There's a million variables that go into it. But as far as content creation, that also goes into self-esteem and lack of confidence / deep insecurity. Most people talk themselves out of it because they're not confident. They're worried about the judgment. They're worried that people are going to say their lighting was bad or that was stupid, or it's just fear. Fear is an incredibly devastating energy in the world and leads to so much bad. And in this very micro version of business bad, not putting out content on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram on a daily basis to not have at least one post as a real estate agent seems to me so stunningly, shockingly big of a miss. It's just a missed opportunity.
Right.
Why did you buy?
It goes up. It goes up there with not calling your own past clients in sphere. Do you know what I mean? It goes up there with not asking for referrals. That's how big of a miss. I agree.
I think it's oxygen. And you can do it a million different ways. Maybe you've become friends with prior clients. You actually ask them, hey, do you want to do a video of I think story time is something I've been thinking a lot about. People struggling with making content. I've been thinking a lot about hey, start something called story time and just tell stories. Hey, it's Janice, from Remax, let me tell you a story. My 3rd house I ever sold. Oh God, what a disaster. Right. I think story, it's what real estate agents do with each other when they hang
100%.
out, right? Exactly. Story time. So I think that there's a million things to do. You could put, you've heard this. I think when I was on stage in 2009, it was one of my first times saying it, be the mayor of your town, interviewing people, reviewing things, school system, data, putting out a video. What we were talking about already, if you're in, outside of Pennsylvania in the Jersey suburbs, put out a video or a picture that talks about the increase in how many homes have sold in Cherry Hill. I don't know. These are all things that are very realistic. Know this. It is very black and white obvious at this point, a decade plus in, that the lack of social media is leaving out opportunity. Now, you may be the cliche 36-year vet. You've been doing this for 36 years. You're 58 years old. You are the queen bee, and you feel like you don't need it. What I keep reminding those individuals, and I've started hearing from them in the last half decade, is that's fine, but every second that means you're losing market share. And until the point where it might not be sustainable, and unless you've saved and you're in a great place, if you plan on, I would say this story goes to, if you plan on working another 12 years, you don't want your last 6 years to be crappy. And so I would say the only individuals that shouldn't be required to put out 3-4 pieces of content a day on social across 3-4 platforms are the individuals who are retiring within the next half decade.
Right.
And if they sell no homes in that next half decade, are in financial stability to have everything they want in their post-retirement world. If you're not one of those individuals, you really need to debate how to figure out how to put out more content, because it's every second it's becoming a bigger variable of how people make decisions on who they work with.
So I agree. And then I would argue that point. And here's what I would say.
Please.
Right now, with the average real estate professional being, 57, 58 years old, which means there's a whole bunch like maybe Judy Johnson from Connecticut, who might be listening or watching this, who's one of our clients who's 92, right? So Gary, by the way, hashtag be like Judy, right? Judy's making her phone calls. She's hustling, right?
My idol.
But here's what I tell people, like when they're in that position, because I remember in 2009, you were like, look, if you're going to retire in 5 years, you can watch me. I'm entertaining, but you're not going to do any of this stuff. Who cares? What I say to those agents now is 7 years ago, I started saying agents are going to start selling their businesses. They're going to start selling the trust that they established in a marketplace. They're going to sell their client list. And that gives them a very real opportunity to retire. So I would counter that just with a different insight is, if you are that agent and you're listening right now and you're 62 years old and you think, oh my God, I'm already done and I paid off my house and I own a couple of rental properties, why do this? I would say, why not extend your brand and sell your business? How are you going to do that? You got to be relevant today, right? It can't just be the postcards, because now every one of those people, we all know that, even the US Postal Service puts it out. If you do social and postcards, you get a better response. Like doing that to extend your brand is key.
And by the way, let there be no confusion, because I've A/B tested this to the moon, billions of dollars in media spent through my companies. There is no comparison to direct mail versus Facebook. If you do Facebook properly, they're not even in the same world.
So Gary, there's no doubt, right? And as a company, we've been talking about, sort of, let's call it multi-channel marketing, right? YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, both the content creation as well as the boosting side and the direct ads. We know, and I think my community, as they listen to this, they're going check. Yes.
Yep.
Let's switch gears. We talked content creation. Let's talk about innovation. The thing that I've always admired about you and others, that do what we do, we continue to evolve. I see a lot of people getting stuck. What are your thoughts around just innovation and re-engineering yourself and getting better, being relevant to your customer? What are your thoughts?
It's about not falling in love with what got you there.
Yeah.
To me, when social media is not the dominant current way to communicate, I'm going to be thrilled. I feel no emotional tie towards social, even though that's where most people see me right now. Yeah. No different than when I was a wine guy and started doing business content. Everyone was confused and this and that. And I'm just like, this is just real to me. If I started doing business content in the late 90s, I would have been the email and Google AdWords guy.
That's right.
So the answer to your question is don't get, and this goes back to the postcards. This goes back to the bench ads. This goes back to being part of the Chamber of Commerce or email or Google AdWords or Facebook. I'm just too scared to not continue to try to challenge myself. I have no interest in, the amount of people that are going to lose because they're 100% Instagram now, and Instagram will evolve over the next 5 years and not be Instagram as we know it. Is going to be very heavy. And so you've got to continue to challenge yourself.
We're already seeing that. Look at all the influencers. I'm not kidding. Guy moves in 10 houses down from me, rents this ocean view pad, and out front, Lamborghini, just each one hotshot car after another, right? Stereotype on his door. My son said he had some symbol for whatever his Instagram was, like on his front door, right? Like the ego. I wanted to punch the guy, right? I wanted to walk by and literally scratch his car. I didn't, but you know what I mean? Just I just see that. Are you ready? COVID hits within 2 weeks. He's out of the house.
Yeah, 100%.
We've already seen it.
I thought the punchline of that story was going to be that he's actually a TikTok celebrity, not Instagram, right? Like things evolve. Things evolve.
For sure.
And so, I think it's very, very important to put yourself out of business before somebody else does it for you.
Right.
And so I innovate out of necessity. I test Alexa skills, even though they're not real yet. I look at AR and VR. I look at machine learning. I look at messaging. I've been very aggressive on text platform.
Yep.
Hey,
thank you.
You're welcome. So these are real things. And so, I think that I just view it again as oxygen, no different than content creation, not getting caught up in what got me here. And so I will continue to look at, every, advertising in esports and
Twitch, wherever.
And by the way, TikTok's on the cusp of being 30 to 40-year-old all day long. And so I could see TikTok being a big conversation in real estate, in the coming months. And I'm sure there's plenty of real estate agents who've already sold a house from a single post on TikTok. And I know that's not the conversation in the real estate world. And so, that's just the game. It's always been the game and always will be the game.
Yeah. I look at TikTok today too. There's no doubt, right? It's coming and it's coming fast. Right. And I think, you've had a lot of influence on that. But I look at it like even the early days of Snapchat, right? Like I would use the Snapchat filters and then put that content on all the other pieces. And I see a lot of people doing that today. They're taking that early stuff we talked about a million years ago, take one piece of content and put it everywhere. Right. Repurposing it. And I think TikTok makes that and very good for people.
And TikTok may become the next Instagram, or it might become the next Vine and Snapchat where it doesn't get to that level. Both are irrelevant. It's keeping your eyes on it in case.
Yeah. I think
because a lot of people who are listening right now won on Facebook and didn't go to Instagram fast and heavy because they were winning on Facebook. And then that's where they got a little caught because Facebook organic got eliminated. And guess what? Instagram organic's going to get eliminated. People right now that get, 100,000 views or 3,000 likes are going to get 30 likes. And, it's just the way these platforms evolve.
Yeah. I think that's the whole thing. It's don't be romantic about it. Keep innovating, keep testing, keep trying new things. And, my tribe knows it's the combination of it's doing everything, right? It's shooting the video and having that become multiple pieces that you're putting out. It's the written word. It's having, maybe today a podcast or at least audio messages people can listen to. But Gary, it's also direct mail and an open house when relevant, when you can do it safely. It's making phone calls, sending text. It's smoke. Remember the old line? Smoke signals. We would do smoke signals if it would make a difference.
I love cold calling. I love, as long as it's respectful, you always try to be empathetic for the other person on the other end. But a cold call is no different than a banner ad that pops up and takes over an entire, website or an email. And so like all of it matters. All of it matters. Finding, all of it is better when you build a brand, when it's coming to you instead of you going to them.
100%.
And that's what I focus on. Let's keep it going.
It's funny you say cold call just for fun. You ready? My little sister's getting married from a cold call. And my grandmother, before she passed, God bless her, at 88 years old, a guy calls and says, "Hi, I'm calling for Martha." She's like, "Martha doesn't live here." He goes, "You have a really nice voice." They ended up living together for 7 years before he passed away. Cold call. Yeah. I mean, so it's, not that I'm telling all my clients right now, if you're single to start cold calling, but literally two people that are very special to me, a cold call created the relationship.
It's literally asking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
so let's switch gears.
And being kind in your ask instead of not. Anyway, let's switch gears. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's switch gears. I want to talk about happiness. Okay. Right. We've been playing with it and talking about it. It's been weaved throughout the conversation. I'm this big fan of doing work makes you happy, right? Not giving a shit what everybody else thinks makes you happy. Contribution makes you happy. Learning makes you happy. What are your thoughts? Like, what do you think is sort of the essence of what makes someone happy?
Self-awareness. I think if you actually know yourself, that's where you can really win this happiness game. I think a lot of people think they want money, but then they realize there's too much pressure in amassing it. And if they have the humility to say, wait a minute, I actually do want to just live this simple life. And I don't have these expectations of my partner or my parents or my business or my boss or whatever it may be. I think self-awareness and simplicity lead to happiness. Now, on the flip side, for me, happiness comes in the process of trying to achieve remarkably big things. I don't need to buy the New York Jets to be happy, but I definitely need to play the game of trying to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know
There
that
is
about
that.
myself. I love the process of a
Yeah.
big win. You
Yeah.
know, it's the thrill of the hunt. What's so weird, and they may seem completely opposite, but they're the same. Trying to buy the Jets is no different than why I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go garage sailing. The thrill of going to somebody's yard and finding something that's worth $20 and buying it for $3, and that high of like, this is cool, is super similar, because I like the process of waking up earlier than anybody, getting a coffee,
Yeah.
you know, teaming up with my brother or my brother-in-law and like going, having in memory that this thing is worth something, like digging in the box a little deeper than the next person. The process. I'm a process guy.
Yeah.
You know, so to me, I think it comes in self-awareness. What do you actually like? What do you like?
Yeah.
And not making it about things or items you own, but like your actual hours in the day. What is it spent on? And do you enjoy it? And
I
not
think
judging
that's,
yourself. I think a
yeah.
lot of stay-at-home moms beat themselves up because they want to actually work, but culture told them they have to stay home and raise. Like, there is no rules, right? Like your rules for you. Like, there's a lot of actually, I think a lot of people should do real estate. I see a lot of happy people in real estate. They like the action, and for some people, they'll make more money in real estate than their job right now in the office, and for others, they'll make less. Both irrelevant. Are you just happier?
Yeah. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, essentially, like before this, I was looking at some stats. Dr. Daniel Amen's been a longtime friend of mine. He posted something recently, 12% of 12%. So let's call it 1 out of 10 Americans today above age 12 years old are on antidepressants. Isn't that insane? 12-year-olds. That's like, you know, almost your kids. You know, my kids are, 19 and 21, right? Like, it's an insane thought. I don't know if enough people will take the time to figure out what makes them happy. I think they're chasing all the time, trying to figure out, is it this car? Is it this listing? Is it this assistant?
I think parenting really needs to be talked about. I think
Yeah.
parents are more fear-based than ever.
Yeah.
I think parents are micromanaging their kids too much. We were fortunate enough, Tom, to grow up in an era where we could breathe a little bit, like
Yep.
go outside and not be watched, and kind of like feel that we could stand on our own 2 feet. I think too many parents are creating fake environments, every hour scheduled. I think I think a lot about it is like zoo animals. Like, you take every animal in a zoo right now, you put them in the wild, they're in deep trouble.
They're dead.
I think a lot of that is happening with children, I think. And I think we're over micromanaging things. We need a little more breathing. But yeah, I mean, I think we're creating expectations, and we need to, it's funny. You look back to older generations, college wasn't a requirement. Vocational worked for your dad, maybe your dad, maybe your grandfather's generation. For mine, I was Russian, but like, if they were like, I think there's a lot of rules in place that are not healthy. And I think reverse engineering, just like health, everybody needs to get a body scan and figure out if cholesterol's bad, if they have heart conditions, if they have digestive stuff, is vegan good for them, if it's not. Like, well, there is no right answer. I think the same thing professionally. I think this notion of like, I'm even worried it's in the other direction now, that everybody wants to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And boy, do most people should
man.
not be. It's a lot of anxiety and loneliness, pressure.
Yeah.
I think it's why I talk a lot about spending money. I think a lot of people are actually figuring themselves out, but then are overspending money on things and then get caught. I mean, a lot of people got caught with COVID.
Yeah.
A lot.
No doubt. Yeah.
And
I will tell you, last summit, and I'll go back 3 summits ago, this has been my mantra for all my clients. No debt, right? That's number one. Big savings. You with me? Cash flow from something other than your primary business. And the number of people that, text me during COVID and said, hey man, I listened. I'm in a great place. I was panicked. I was nervous, but my spouse just told me we have 7 years of cash reserves. So we're okay.
That's incredible. I mean,
now the hard part is a lot of people didn't listen.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm wondering, because essentially I wanted to talk about, money in this conversation, and it blends nicely. I also want to talk about teams, and then I've got one last question, and then we'll both get to our days. But this has been super, super cool. Money.
Yeah.
What advice do you have? I mean, okay, ready? I'm gonna razz you. 2015, we're in Palm Desert, California. My client David from New York City says to you, "Hey Gary, what stock should I buy?"
Yep.
Do you remember what you said?
I do not recall, but I'm excited to hear this answer.
You went like this. You go, Netflix. Okay, next question. And I watched 1,100 people sit in the room, and I tell the story all the time. A third of them went like this. Oh, stock market, right? A third went, oh, that's a really good idea. And they wrote it down. And a third of them, including myself, I called my broker, Keith, and said, hey man, how much cash do I have? He's like, you got X. I'm like, put it in Netflix. Oh, no, man. It's like $360 a share. I'm like, just, dude, it's my cash. Put it in Netflix. 6 months later, 700, a year and a half later, split, already back. I mean, bananas, right? So I'm not asking you for a stock pick, but I had to give you recognition for that.
I remember that.
Thank you.
Actually, now I think that's on video. Somebody threw that.
That is on video.
I love cash. I will always have, one more than cash. I love that I'm willing to live in a studio apartment, and my kids will go from fancy to not. I love that. Yeah. That mindset first, cash second. But yeah, I think cash is always good to have some. It's just really good. Rainy day stuff is good. And then after that, I mean, look, this is crazy talk. I can't believe I'm about to say this. Most of the investing I've done in the last 18 months has been in sports cards. I believe that sports cards are baseball cards. I mean, I'm buying basketball cards, wrestling, and soccer, but like literally the baseball cards of the 80s, what have you, like the market has 3 to 10x. I think it's this generation's art. I think when people made fun of me on Netflix and Facebook and all that stuff, in the stock market, it's happening now with sports cards. I think real estate agents have that love of flipping. So I think there's probably some listening right now saying, what? Please Google, like sports cards, hit the news tab, read articles, get educated. Don't just blindly go into it. There's a lot of education needed. But I like cash.
Hey, please. That's an important distinction for everybody listening. The number of times, so I do AMAs all the time on Instagram stories, man. And it's fascinating. You have thousands of questions answered. The money gets brought up. I'll get this one all the time. Tom, I've got $2,500 to invest in my business. What do you recommend? And my response is nothing. Save more cash. Hey, Tom, I'm thinking about buying a building, but it's going to strap me of all my cash, but I can move my team there. And I said, you don't have enough cash. Right? If you're asking me, you don't have enough cash. So I want to say to people, don't run blindly and start getting baseball cards.
It's why I love sports cards. $2,500, you could do real damage.
Right.
In a year, 2,500 to 25,000 in this market is realistic. And I don't know how to do that anywhere else.
I agree.
But it takes 50 hours and really being right about 1 to 3 athletes. And that's hard too. Derrick Rose was on his way to becoming one of the best basketball players of all time, and then he got hurt. Yep. So there's risk in everything. So I like cash. I'm a fan. That's my answer to cash.
Good. Everyone listening, you don't have enough cash. Save more money.
Ever.
You don't. Ever.
No,
ever.
Ever. Very valuable. Yes.
Yep. And for all those people out there that say you shouldn't have cash, just invest all your money, put yourself on the edge all the time. Screw them.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
No. All right. So let's switch gears. Ready? I wanted to ask you this question. It was really, the question I get all the time, which is, hey man, social is so noisy. And many would argue today, I talk about scaling trust. It's harder to get attention, to get your word out because it's so noisy, right? What do you recommend? And I want to start first with the new agent, someone that's just brand new. Your sister, just a couple years ago.
The answer is authenticity. My sister did a good job and heard me loud and clear, just being honest. Like, I don't know shit. I'm learning shit, which made a lot of people not work with her, but gave her some at-bats. It was authentic and away she went. I think the blanket answer, because I want everybody to hear that, is, you know what else is noisy? Real estate agents.
Right.
There's so many real estate agents for every town in America. Yeah. That's noisy. How did you break through? You were better in whatever that meant. And so the way to break through in content is to be better. I think authenticity is better. I think people buy from people. So when you talk about going to this high school, people buy from, this is back to the content. What do you put out there? The answer is authenticity. If you've done selling homes for 38 years, that's your content. You know, you're in a good
Here's
spot.
38 lessons in 38 years of selling homes.
That's right.
Right? Like
if you're my sis or somebody else, you're just authentically you. And what was her attachment? Her truth about being a mom that was going into the game, and a lot of moms that were going into the game associated with that. And by the way, and that one piece of content hits a person that was a friend of hers in high school, and that person's sister-in-law is looking for a home. Like, everybody knows real estate's a word of mouth game. You're just using this content to get word of mouth, and whatever you're talking about is what you're talking about. I would challenge everybody. The number one answer I would give is, if you're a St. Louis Cardinals fan, put out content about that. If you love beer, put out I'm telling you right now, a video review of your favorite craft beer that also incorporates that you're a real estate agent. Let's just go through it. Hey guys, it's Barry. I'm going to review Victory Double Bock, beer. So anyway, by the way, I'm doing this video because I heard Gary Vee on Tom Ferry's thing, and he said, do things. And so I'm a real estate agent. That's all I was listening. Like, literally that little line, and then you go into a 5-minute review of the beer, might literally lead to in the DM. The DM is like, hey, by the way, I'm moving into this town. Can you help me? Like, that's my big push, which is like, what do you put out? If you're new, the journey of being new. If you're in the middle, the journey of being in the middle. If you're 38 years in, the experience of 38 years in. Next, that you're a sibling of, you have 10 siblings, that you're a Brewers fan, that you play video games, that you're the best Monopoly player in, like, I literally believe somebody saying I'm the best Monopoly player in Manalapan, New Jersey, leads to somebody messaging them saying, let's have a tournament, leads to 4 new people you meet, leads to one home sold. It's literally everything.
Yeah. So I actually have taught for years this sort of concept of people should have, multiple parts of their day, right, in their career. So you've got a morning routine, and we know the benefits of working out and meditation and all that. And then I say, but you could create content on that. Here's this morning's meditation, right? Have you tried? Create a little engagement. Or here's the one I'm using today. What are you using? Then I say, the second part of your day is you got to get the data. So you got to get updated on what's happening on the MLS, the multiple listing service. What are the transactions? What's moving? What's not moving? And I'm like, my God, the number one question agents get asked is, oh, hey, Gary, you're in real estate. How's the market? Now, when they're asking it, what they really want to know is, how much is my apartment worth, right?
Exactly.
How much is my neighbor's worth? Is now a good time to buy? And I said, if you're not literally grabbing your phone and just saying, hey guys, I'm sitting on my computer right now looking at the MLS. Let me tell you what's happening right now.
Or, you know what's a good one, Tom? Humility. People love humility because people don't practice it. So back to story time. Let me tell you about when I completely missed Williamsburg, or why I was wrong about downtown Detroit, or let me tell you the time where I moved to Dallas instead of Austin, even though my instinct said Austin was going to explode more. Like, or when I said no to taking on a little house because I thought it was a big shop, but the person that did is now the biggest agent in town. And it was because that was the granddaughter of this, like those are like misses.
Yes.
Like when I talk about when I passed on paper and missed 500 million, people love that,
Yeah, I agree. We talk about, putting out the mistakes, right? Here's the mistakes that I made, right? And I'm doing it because I want you to avoid it, right? Like that's always the lesson, right? And people learn more and they remember more of the mistakes than they do all the successes. The success, oh, Gary, of course, man, he's, of course he invested in Facebook, right? So I love that. But let's switch gears and say, what about the team, right? What about the team who's maybe, they're more of they've got a bunch of little brands, if you will, mini brands. I don't mean that by small, just smaller brands inside of the bigger brand, more like a corporation. What should they be doing?
Well, if they're recruiting new team members, LinkedIn, why? If they're just, I've always been surprised that little teams haven't done more things like The Office. I mean, you're not going to make it an Emmy award-winning show like The Office, but I do think banter amongst like teams, I've always thought was huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Just little jokes, like office joke culture being put out to the world, I've always thought was a huge opportunity.
Yeah, memes.
Yeah, just like literally if I'm like, I mean, I do it right with D-Rock and with Dustin, with GaryVee, like incorporating your business world into your content, I think is a real opportunity. Open office hours where you can Q&A. I mean, think about how many people have a little 6-person office. And if they said for an hour, we'll answer anything, and all these people coming in that, might want to get into real estate or business things, just that kind of stuff.
Yeah. A local, notable Just saying. By the way, we have clients that during COVID, we said, you guys should just be doing office hours. Just, open up your Zoom account and say, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from noon to 1, I'm just going to be here. And sometimes no one showed up and sometimes 6 people showed up.
Yep.
Right? Like even if they're dark screen, you can't tell their name. It doesn't make a difference. This is how we attract our tribe. Right? Yep. So two last thoughts. First, Joe Rogan's deal. Right. As a podcaster. Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, did you see the clip where I predicted it like cold, like literally predicted? Yeah, I was super hot on this. I mean, I basically saw it as Howard Stern. I mean, podcasts behind paywalls and exclusive places is going to be a very lucrative business. And, as a top 100 podcaster, like it's very much on my radar, and I'm trying to navigate options and strategies and would I do that or would I want to stay across all the platforms? Podcasting's big, man. It's going to be big for a long, long time. We're on the move and we like to listen. It's passive consumption. You don't have to focus. You can listen. And anybody who's willing to start a podcast should.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So Gary, Summit 2020 coming up in September.
Yes.
Let me tell you, because I'm sure your team hasn't told you, the theme, the sort of overarching message is moving forward powerfully.
Yep.
And when I wrote that down, right, one of my teammates goes, dude, that's pretty freaking cliche. And I said, so thank you. Because that's how my team and I roll, right? Yeah. And I said, all right, man, let's see, pandemic, health crisis, economy, injustices, the most tumultuous election we will probably ever see in our lifetime. You tell me, do we need to focus now more than ever? Do we need to contribute more than ever, create content more than ever, market ourselves better, have more empathy, have more patience? Like, I think we need it more than ever. And I said, so I get your cliche point. And as soon as I said it that way, they're like, well, yeah, that's the shit you got to get out. That's what you got to tell people. I knew when we decided, hey, we're going virtual, I was like, I got to bring Gary back.
I'm very excited about it. Look, I'm very focused on the talk because I think everything you just said, yes, and simplicity and focus, and I'm really digging in to some of the subject matters I want to touch on, and I don't know if we're gonna have Q&A opportunities because I'd love to go.
We will.
Good. I'd like to. I'll push you for as much of that as you'll allow me to have because I like the specifics, and I'm looking forward to it.
You know what I'm excited about? Your sister Liz being there.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Right. All of us being together. I think back to when we were in Miami, right? The first time I got to connect with her, and then watching her just absolutely soar. You've been
outside of me, you've been the biggest impact on her career, she says. And so I thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, remember you asked, hey, can you help my sister? And I was like, dude, you have helped me so much. Like, of course, right? What else could I do? So for all my friends out there watching, I'm going to assume you or you're listening, you're following Gary. Gary, man, just thank you, bro. This is like our 9th show. I'm super pumped. Fun. I can't wait to be together in September. I know you're going to bring the thunder. And for the people that were wondering, the woman from Dallas, she was walking back because what he was saying, it's my sort of practicality of real estate and his practicality of innovation and marketing at the time. That was the connection. And I would argue it's even more important today than it was in 2009.
And I think we touched on a lot of themes here. So what's exciting about that is I'm going to try to go even more specific in the talk, which is why I want to do a lot of Q&A, because I think that's right. I think the best communicator for the next decade is going to be the business winner. And I'm going to try to help as many of you as possible in September. So I'll see you then.
Love it. All right, Gary, enjoy the day, man. I look forward to seeing you soon. Love you, fam.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.